Thumbs up. All right. I'll call the meeting to order. No one is excused, and we have minutes from August 6th to adopt or change. Hubie? Hubie moves acceptance, approval of the minutes. Are any concerns? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Call for post-agenda items.
Do you have one in-camera land matter?
In-camera land. So added. Brian?
Just a quick discussion about the recreation facilities consultation that we're doing.
Clarence?
Is there going to be a bit of a discussion on the assessment matters?
I was adding it if no one else did, so it's on. Yeah. Mark?
I have in camera for labor, please.
Who was the land? Was that you too, Mark?
No, I think that was Lane.
Lane, okay. Anything else? Seeing no other hands raised, could I get a motion for the adoption of that agenda, please? Anne Marie moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. We have public hearings commencing at 11:30. So we will go over to Ag Service Business. Item 9. Todd?
I promise I'm here.
Good, and I forgot to give you a heads up when I was starting as well. Oh well,
Okay.
By the time we're done COVID, we'll have this figured out.
The whole world got to hear about your conversation about apples with Mark and the bus ride, so everybody knows that your granddaughter had a wonderful bus ride.
And life is grand.
And well, life is always grand.
Yes.
So 9 is just a wonderful update, correct?
Yes.
I made a few notes, nothing too major, just some of the highlights, I guess, stuff that we might be interested in. We are finishing up our roadside mowing. I talked to the guys yesterday, and it sounds like we're kind of within a week, we'll be pretty much locked up and headed back home. Not a whole bunch grew in the north side of the county after the last pass, so it's just getting rid of some of the taller kochia that we seem to get on the edge of the road, and then our double passes on our higher use roads. Emerson closed up early this week. We still have our seasonal campers down there, as well as a few of the after-season groups. I think our last after-season group that's confirmed right now comes in on September 23rd. So we're always excited to have them. They get kind of a quiet atmosphere, and they're a wonderful group. The Dino Good Sams, I believe they're called, come in, and they've been enjoying it for the last 4 or 5 seasons, and we're happy to have them. And it's nice because one of our previous staff members is part of that group, and I think he takes care of the whole place for us when he's down there. We did tie up a few of our last contract spraying jobs just this week and last week, so we're kind of winding down now that the frost is starting to get a little colder anyways. And we did spend a fair bit of time on milkweed and thistles. We do a really good job on the first kind of 15 to 20 feet of the ditch with our roadside spraying, but we often have to go back and touch up the kind of closer to the fence line and closer to the landowners' fields. This time of year when everything starts to come off, just helps us to have less concerns about sensitive crops, I guess. And I guess hamlet mowing's darn near done. We have a few of our hamlets that do some irrigating, so the grass is still a little bit green, but the others dried out quite a bit. And then the big thing that seems to be we're getting lots of conversation about right now is just our strychnine. We sent out an order form and for landowners, because we're only able to buy it until next March. And when we talked to the supplier, he said, you better have your order in early. So we want to have our order in by November, which is what his recommendation was. So we've got, I don't know, probably a couple dozen of requests in for a 2021 order now. And it seems like we're talking to another 4 or 5 guys every day. So it's been good. I think people are appreciative of our kind of forward thinking on that, trying to get ahead of that. Mostly, I think people their questions come about is how much should I or can I order, because they're able to use it for 3 seasons. It's just that often when you plump together 3 seasons worth of a control product, it adds up pretty fast. So that's kind of the balance. How much can I get versus how much do I need versus how much is this going to cost me all in 1 year? So it's been good. Been great to talk to everybody. And outside of that, we still have some rental stuff going, and I think our drills are actually booked to go out again yet this year. So we've basically seen our drills for about 2 weeks since April. So it's been a really good year. That early spring moisture really helped everybody be optimistic about growing stuff on dry land. So and that's the big ticket items, Molly.
Thanks, Todd. Questions? No questions? So Mark, obviously there's no limit on the strychnine. You just try and make a prediction. Yeah.
Kind of what we've been recommending to guys is just to kind of determine what they've needed on a yearly basis to manage their populations, and thinking ahead that strychnine might be going away permanently, that they should probably get ahead of those populations. So kind of just having 3 years worth of product, but trying to go hard at the same time.
Gotcha. Thank you. Brian?
Thanks, Molly. Todd, invasive weeds, what's August been like? What's the season been like? Phragmites specifically? I know you had sent out an email a little while ago, but that was just curious towards the end of the season here, what's been the experience from the weed end of things?
You know, weeds are funny. They always seem to find a way, Brian. And this year we had those, was it darn near 10 inches of rain, something like that. And those years are always tough because you always feel like you're behind. But I think what we get is a really good control year out of that, because you get those populations. Everything germinates on these kinds of years. So we're happy about that. I think we had a great year. Noxious and prohibited noxious weeds. We did a lot of great work specific to the Phragmites. Somehow we got super lucky. We were alerted to the Phragmites by a ratepayer, which was phenomenal. We went down and we were able to control it. And somehow within all of our luck, we cut it below that water level. And when we did that, it drowned out those remaining plants somehow. And we haven't had any Phragmites come back in 2 full seasons now. So we're pretty pumped about that. All 3 sites have been clean, and we just continue to monitor them so we don't have anything come up. And I guess the good thing about finding those new weeds is they're always in the back of your mind. So anytime we're out doing any sort of weed inspecting now, we're always looking for that. So especially the people that had to cut it the first time, you never forget that.
The one that I've noticed along our fence line, I thought, and I totally agree with your, when you have more rain, you get these flushes, and is the burdock. I thought I had all my burdock under control, and we were doing some crazy burdock hunting. So just curious if that's one that's really been prevalent this year, or whether there's another one that's been there.
Yeah, burdock is a great one. And I think I was told this anecdotally, but I've been told that burdock has a really thick seed coat, and it has the ability to last for 50 years in the soil until the conditions are right to germinate. And then the other wonderful part about burdock, it's a biennial plant. So sometimes, or every time, it starts in one year and it flowers in the next. So you'll see those kind of rhubarb leaves, but you might not even note it last year because it could have been just small when it germinated. And then this year, of course, you get that wonderful plant that everybody sees. I think burdock is staying relatively where it always has been. But we do, like, it's spread fairly far. I know we've seen it in farm fields and feedlots in kind of that Rolling Hills country. We know it's certainly in that Matswin Creek. And those producers have been really good, and they've been fighting it for 10 years. It's a battle for sure. I don't know if it's our most prevalent, but certainly the one that a lot of the cattle producers fight for sure. We spent a good chunk of time, Bazzano country again, doing baby's breath. The last 5 years, kind of up by that Imoto Acres kind of general area, all the way up to our Bazzano gravel pit. We've really fought it there, trying to keep it at bay. Baby's breath's another one of those big ugly ones, and on a year like this where it has a lot of opportunity for nutrient uptake, it does well. So we really try to hit those ones as much as we can. Probably our most prevalent noxious weed is thistles, because I think just about everybody's got Canada thistle somewhere on the property. But yeah, I think it was a great control year. And by the looks of how tired everybody was by about August 12th when they got into a spray truck, you can definitely tell we had a good year.
Hubie?
Well, I'm always interested in the Hawks. I'm wondering how they're doing this year, Todd, with the new platforms.
Well, the ones at this building are doing fantastic. We still see them, and I see them. I see Hawks everywhere. I think Hawks in general are having a great year. When you're driving around, literally every fence line seems to have 4 or 5 Hawks hanging about. We talked to, well, with all the strychnine business, Huey, we've been talking to farmers that said they stopped doing strychnine this spring because the Hawks moved in droves, and they were happy to have them, so they allowed them to do that control work for them. So I think, yeah, Hawks are having a wonderful year this year.
That's great. Thanks, Todd.
Yeah, you betcha. I know certainly the ones that are in my yard have annoyed my family. Every time they mow the lawn, they're getting swooped and all that kind of jazz, but I keep reminding them we don't need that many cats anyway.
Thank you. Ellen, are you still having trouble with files?
Yes, Molly. I'm not even able to go back into AllNet agenda, but I think I'll be able to, after our lunch break, I will be able to, I think it may be a problem with the Wi-Fi, and I might be able to go to a different location after our lunch break. So I can't even get the agenda back. And I logged out, and it will not let me back in.
Are you moving to a different location in your house? Well, go ahead.
No, I will be leaving to a different house.
Oh.
Location, yes.
Okay. All right. Anything else for Todd? Okay, we'll go on to the draft report card and the Ag Service Board resolution responses then, Todd.
Sure, thank you, Molly. I'm not sure how everybody else felt about it. I went through them trying to figure out, when I read the statements and then read the responses and just kind of see if what the Ag Service Board Committee came up with for, unsatisfactory, accept the response, incomplete, whether that seemed reasonable. And I think for the most part they did, at least from my perspective. I'm not sure if there's more discussion on that, but and I wasn't thinking that we probably wanted to go through them all in detail together today. I assumed reading them once was probably more than everybody wanted to do. I think the good news is there's many that are still being worked on by our Ag Service Board Committee, which is fantastic. That was about all I had.
Excellent, Todd. Does anyone have any questions or comments further to Todd's comments that he had made and suggestions? Brian?
Well, it's really nothing that we can do much about, I guess, but I look at the members that sit on the provincial committee and the representation, and I scratch my head, I guess, because I look at the makeup and with the amount of irrigation that's in this province, not just in this area, but in this province, we, other than Brian Bruin, I just don't see any representation as far as our ASB provincial committee members. And I know we can't change that unless we get somebody elected there, but that's the reality. And I think that we lose some of our perspective when we get that. And I think that's unfortunate. But, so I don't know, what are your thoughts on that specific thing, Todd?
I guess it would depend on, I think the guys that sit on the Ag Service Board Committee are obviously all Ag Service Board members. And so of course they have, different perspectives being from which area they're from. But I believe that when they hit that Ag Service Board Committee, they work on behalf of, provincial problems or provincial things that need a provincial solution. So I'm not sure why we would need more from, I guess, the irrigation farmer standpoint or irrigation area standpoint. Do you have a specific why you're thinking that? Just because of higher ag, maybe productivity or higher intensity of agriculture? Is that what you're kind of thinking?
Well, I guess overall, when we have issues down here that need that perspective from irrigation and you don't have it at the table, I mean, it wouldn't be any different than me as a farmer or former farmer being at the table with beef producers. I mean, I understand a good part of it, but I certainly don't understand it like a beef producer does. And so that's why I look at that list of people on there and I say, when it comes to certain things that we deal with when it comes with specific to irrigation, do we have enough depth of knowledge in that group? And again, it's not something that we can change unless at the table those people get elected, and that's our responsibility.
No, it's probably a good comment, Brian, and I don't think there's anything wrong with discussing it. It's just, I guess, like in my head, I kind of think personally, these are great opportunities for, we might not know anything about the dark brown soil zone or the areas around Lacombe with the different ag pressures that they have from multiple dairies and that kind of thing, but our representative from the South would certainly advocate for change for them if they needed it. Do you know what I mean? He might not have the experience to bring up new conversation topics, but he would certainly advocate for them, right? Does that kind of make sense?
Well, and you're right, I guess. But I guess when I look at the list, I think there's knowing some of their backgrounds. It's hard to. I think they're strong in, like, the group is strong in certain areas, but there's not a diversity within the group, and that's where I'm struggling with. I'm not trying to suggest that one isn't qualified more than the other. I'm just saying that if I'm at the table with a group of people, it's nice to have the diversity so you get different perspectives that bring a better knowledge to that. So,
big time.
Anyways.
No, it's a good point. I look forward to your name on the ballot here in October.
Any other questions? If not, we have a motion to deal with. Brian will move the motion. Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Ellen, did you see the email from Mark? Okay.
Yes, I did. However, I did not receive it. I'll try with my phone perhaps, because my other computer is not receiving it either. I will just check with my phone.
All right, I'll leave you alone to figure it out for a while. We'll go on to the Planning and Development Report. Item 10.
Hi.
10-1. Good morning, Maria.
So the Planning and Development Department has maintained a busy pace throughout August and into September, which is normal. They're seeing a lot of people that are improving or adding or altering their living spaces. They're probably spending a lot more time at home than normal, or their businesses. So one, I guess, exciting thing is there has been 2 sales of lots in the Blair subdivision. So that's just west of Brooks by Westland Acres. And there are multiple lots there that have been vacant for quite a while. And so we've issued 2 development permits for single family dwellings in there. So I think that's a good sign. People want to remain in the area and build, and so that's really great. So with these additions and people wanting to add to their properties, we are also seeing people come in that have older homes built prior to the land use bylaw, or 1990 is kind of the date that we use. And so they don't have development permits for those buildings. So now they're needing to get permits to bring their lots into compliance so that they can then add or change or add a different building, say a shop, onto their lot. So we're seeing some of that. We're also still working on education and enforcement. So that's an ongoing process, it seems. We continue to meet with people regarding subdivisions. So that's another thing that has been keeping us fairly busy. We're forming relationships with the local surveyors, also educating parties on the subdivision process and the land use bylaw and what is required, and items that may come up during the subdivision process. It's not always just a cut and dry, get a surveyor and register it at land titles. There's always something or the potential of something to come up along the way. So we want to make sure that these people are informed, and hopefully they're not too surprised, or they're ready should something wonky happen. August, we have our last intermunicipal development plan that was signed by the minister. So that was the one with special areas. So we are officially completed all the intermunicipal development plans with our neighbors. Having said that, we have not updated the IDP with the City of Brooks. We've kind of tabled that one because we do have a working IDP in place. I guess we'll see what comes out of the SWOT analysis, and we'll maybe have some more insight on that going forward. There were 2 land use amendment applications that were presented to Council in August for first reading, and we'll have the public hearings for those today. And we've also been having a few compliance certificates come to the office, people who want confirmation for, say, a potential buyer that everything on their property is built to the standard of the land use bylaw. So as part of that process, we require an up-to-date real property report completed by an Alberta land surveyor. And if anything on the property doesn't meet the land use bylaw, then that person either needs to bring everything up to compliance by removing a structure that doesn't have a development permit or getting a development permit. Or some people just say, okay, well then I guess we won't get compliance. So if they decide to do that, then they can't develop their property any further until they do become compliant. So that's kind of the planning and development August in a nutshell.
Thank you. Questions? Doesn't look like there are any questions, so could we get a motion to accept the planning and development report, please? Ellen moves. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you, Maria. On to item 10.2, funding for the minibus, and I think this is over to Lane.
Good morning, Council.
Morning.
This particular item is for Council, and it's actually been circulated to each of the other municipalities in the Newell area as well. In February 2019, the pilot project that provides transportation from Brooks to Medicine Hat was launched. It was made possible through funding that remained from a municipal grant that was approved for a regional transportation project study in 2014. The issue is that the funding is about to run out. There is a subsidy that has been required in order to operate that service. And the question before Council now is whether or not there is interest in including an amount in the budget for the continued operation of that service. We have yet to receive a response from any of the other municipalities that have been approached as a result of the request from joint services to circulate this out to each of the respective councils. Really, the issue is whether or not there's an appetite in referring this to the 2021 budget discussions, or do you think that it's time to wind the program up, the pilot project up, and understand that yes, it was treating or filling needs, but there is an issue about funding that we just haven't got capacity in the budget to look after this service going forward in the future. So that's really a summary of it. It's up for discussion here right now.
Thanks, Lane. Kelly, questions?
Yes, thanks, Molly. Lane, my question, I appreciate the statistic report. The one piece that I'm wondering about is residents. Where are they from? We collect that information anywhere in a report?
It certainly is available. They're primarily Brooks residents. There have been a few that have been using the service from some of the other communities, but primarily the majority of users are by far residents from within the city of Brooks.
Thanks. Can we maybe get a copy of that at some point? Thank you.
Brian?
When I look at the ridership, I can't help but question the viability of it. But I guess what I am wondering about, it was indicated to us a while ago that, or at least I was made aware of it, that the current shuttle system that's privately owned, I think there's a couple of them that come out of Medicine Hat and go to Calgary, is going to be shutting down and won't be continuing. And I'm just wondering if that would affect the ridership, if we know when that's going to happen, if anybody would know when that's going to happen, and does that make it more viable for if we would move to a cost recovery system? And Lane, when I looked at your report, I think I seen there somewhere that that the all-in costs were about $400 a trip. Is that correct, or am I out to lunch? And so knowing those two things, is there is there any appetite for the riders to be able to fund this on their own with a cost recovery system?
With regards to the cost to operate it, all-in costs are $400. That includes an amount for depreciation of the unit that is being used. We did conduct a survey of the riders a while ago and asked what they felt would be an acceptable or reasonable rate to be charged, knowing full well that the $20 round trip fee right now is significantly subsidized. And we did actually receive responses back that the riders felt that it would be appropriate to increase the rate significantly, possibly as much as double or maybe even a little bit more than that. I know that the shuttle services that have been running, there is a question about whether or not they're going to continue. I think that they've actually discontinued operations. I don't know how many people were actually using that service, and I don't know what else to suggest in the way of other options that should be considered when it comes to funding the service going forward.
Anne-Marie?
A lot of these trips are medical trips, and I'm wondering if Alberta Health Services have been contacted to see if they're willing to help with this.
We did reach out to Alberta Health Services. We reached out to the renal dialysis unit in Medicine Hat because a number of them are patients at that center as well. We contacted several of the agencies whose clients are using the service to access facilities and services in Medicine Hat. We have engaged each of those agencies, and again, we're coming up against the wall where the indication is that they don't have funds in their budgets to make available for this purpose.
I'll let Anne-Marie respond, and Ellen also after.
So yeah, in this case, you know, if you just only look at the numbers, it doesn't really make any sense to continue. It's just a cost that we cannot afford. So I'm leaning towards, you know, it was a pilot project and it was good that we tried it, but maybe it's time to not continue.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Ellen?
Yes, I also reviewed it prior, and it was a pilot project, and the mandate of this pilot project was supposed to be only for residents that needed medical appointments out of town. And so I did notice that there's quite a few people going shopping, which is wonderful, but, you know, we local shopping as well, which I think we should promote and not sort of take them out of town. And the numbers just don't they just don't add up, I don't think, for it to pay to continue with this.
I'm seeing quite a number of hands going up, and I also know that Cole has a date for a talk with us, and he is here with us, and so I'm going to jump to his report, and we'll come back after Cole is done to this topic. So Cole is item 11.1 on our agenda. Welcome, Cole.
Thank you very much.
And you may begin your report.
Okay, thank you again, Reeve Douglas and councillors. I'm going to start off with the Hamlet distribution systems. As you can see in my report, we found a small leak close to the Tilly pump house. There was a significant amount of water, but we did find a leak on a valve, and it was quite small, and I was a little bit apprehensive that that may not have fixed it, and unfortunately my fears were correct. We did fix the small leak on a valve in the general vicinity, but we're still seeing a leak right next to the pump house itself in Tilly. For the last 2 days, including today still, we're trying to troubleshoot the location of that exactly. And what we've determined, and if everybody recalls when you guys rebuilt that pump house, there was an existing clear well or tank. They built a new one right beside it. They basically butted them against each other, and they cored a hole through both walls so that a pipe can go through and they can be linked together. We think that it's leaking on the seal around that pipe and that cored hole because it's coming right out in between the two pieces of cement walls from the old tank and the new tank. So we've been, like I said, troubleshooting yesterday and today. We've drained down the old tank, and we're just kind of seeing if that leak will stop. And if it has, then we know that it's in the old side. If not, we're going to have to drain down the new side below where that hole was cored through, and to see if it stops there. And then we can determine what side it's leaking from. Hopefully, it's just as simple as tightening the flex seal on it, and we'll be back in business. Worst case scenario, there might be a crack, and it might have to be repaired by an external contractor. But there again, as soon as my presentation's done of my report, I'm going to be going out there and we're going to see if we can locate exactly what the problem is. But it's been an ongoing process, but we're taking care of it. The rural water project, Councillor DeJong has asked a couple times just how many new hookups we've had. So I went back since the start of June and to look to see how many trouble calls we've had to shut off customers' water and how many new hookups we've had. So basically, if you see there, I've got 3 new hookups, and we had 7 calls to temporarily turn off the water because the homeowners are looking after their float valve assemblies now as far as repairing them. So sometimes we do have to go out there and shut off the main for them to complete those repairs. So although we're not seeing all of them, like I said, some of the homeowners are able to do everything themselves and hire their plumbers, but that's the numbers we've gotten. And I believe we had 1 more since I submitted my written report. So we have 4 new hookups and 7 issues since June 1st. So that's not a ton, but they're there for you to look at. Wastewater collection. We finally got the lift station pump for Lake Mule Resort back in and finished and reinstalled. So that's all good. There was some back order parts for it and everything like that. So it took several weeks, about a little over 2 months to complete, but it's back in and running as it should. And there was a power transformer issue that's supplied the power to the lift station in Scandia, and it was housed in the pump house, which is the fire hall in Scandia. So we had In-Phase Electric go in there and replace that. So everything is looking good there as well. I didn't include, because I wanted to get my field service reports back before I presented it to you. We also had a leak on the transmission main, or the force main for the sewer line going from Lake Mule Resort back to the city of Brooks. This is probably leak number 6 since I've started. It was a small little crack. They were able to dig down to it, put a repair clamp on, and it was done and repaired in literally 2 hours. So it was good that way. It was a small, but there again, it happened again, and it's, from what I can see over the last half a dozen times we've had to dig that up and repair it, I'm thinking it's mostly due to the material was backfilled into those trenches. There's some big rocks coming out of there, and it's just not conducive to have a pipe sitting in a trench with big rocks against it. The pumps cycle on and off. You get vibration. Those rocks tend to rub and cause some issues with that line. And that's what we're seeing. Like when they were excavating, they were pulling rocks out of there that were, 6 inches in diameter. They were pretty big rocks. So you don't like to see that close to those kind of lines. So I'm thinking that's the root cause of most of these, because we've since gone and we do yearly maintenance on the air release valves along that whole line. So they're all brand new valves. They're all got brand new stainless steel shutoffs on them. And like I said, we go through and do the maintenance on them every year. So it's not anything like that that's causing it. So that's all I can say to that. And one more thing that that's not on the written report is we did pull the distribution pump. There's 3 of them there. So number 1 in Rolling Hills distribution, we pulled that pump and it's sent off, and I just got the quote today to do a rebuild on it. And that's why I left it off. I wanted to find out what the cost was going to be and if we're going to go new or rebuild them. And like normal, we usually rebuild them because it's a fraction of the cost. And in this case, it's less than half the cost of buying a new pump. So, and when they come back, they're like brand new. So that's what's happening in Rolling Hills in the distribution pump house. And that's the extent of my report, if there's any questions.
Thank you, Cole. Anne-Marie and Hubie.
Cole, the question is about, you were talking about backfilling with rocks in it, and that does damage to the pipe, the one to Lake Newell Resort. So when you fix that, where does the bill go? Who pays for that?
That is a county line. It's for the county hamlet, so that's the county bill.
And so then it ends up at Lake Newell Resort.
No, those costs are eaten inside the operations budget, Anne-Marie. They are not attributed back to the specific hamlet.
Thank you, Mark.
Because if council remembers, we set one water rate for all hamlets. We set one sewer rate for all hamlets. They are not paying the costs associated directly to the specific hamlet themselves. That was decided on 7, 8 years ago or more.
Right.
Right, and that's why I don't remember. Thanks, Mark.
And just to clarify, I was answering on the fact when we bill back to you, we attribute it and code it to that specific hamlet. So that's where I was mistaken.
And that would be accurate as well. We have all of those costs tracked within our line items within the function 42 GL budget that the county has. So Lake Newell Resort, Patricia, Scandia, Rainier. Well, Rainier doesn't have sewer, but you know what I mean. So the other thing that I was going to add, just on top of Cole, sorry for interjecting here, or even council. There are 1,563 registered accounts on the regional water system. 1,563 is that number. 1,198 of those are active. So that is a 76.6% active rate of those registered to the County Newell Water Project. The remaining are 365 inactive accounts.
All right, Hubie, thanks, Mark.
So Cole, this leak at the Tilly Pump House, that's running into the old reservoir right now, right?
That's correct.
So it shouldn't make any problems for land anyway around there because it's running into the old reservoir, so we're good that way.
Yes, so the overflows and the drain, they all go to that same pond, so it's going exactly where we want it to, so it's good that way.
Okay, good. Thanks, Cole.
You're welcome.
Anything else for Cole today? Don't see any other hands up. Thank you, Cole. And thank you also for taking the time to travel to Lethbridge on last week, I guess that was, on the 1st, to attend the Municipal Affairs Ministers meeting. I did let council know who attended from our region, and we had an excellent turnout, and I just don't think I included your name, but I know you were there.
Oh.
Appreciated the support and the understanding that this is a pretty serious issue for our whole region, not just the county. No.
For sure. Thank you.
You bet. All right. If there are no other questions for Cole, we'll move back to, we'll let him go and we'll move back on our agenda to where we were at item 10.1, the funding of the minibus. Were there any other comments? Or are we comfortable making a okay, Tracy.
Yeah, I struggle with this one because I think it is a great service, but the thing that kind of caught my attention today was the ridership, or not just today, but the ridership numbers, and that most of the ridership is from the city. So I struggle with it because I think it's a service that would be good to have, but if our residents are not using it, then, you know, are we really, do we need to fund it? Because to me, it's a city issue, that something that the city should maybe look at doing. If the ridership population is from their area, then maybe that's something that they need to do. I would hate for, if we had members from our jurisdiction that were riding it, then to me, I would absolutely support it, but I just question the ridership.
Wayne?
Yeah, I'm troubled with the cost of subsidizing the service also, but I think till we find out what's happening with this assessment process from the government, we can't really be doing any subsidizing or putting any money into things. We're going to have to cut a lot if any of these processes go. So I think we should just get used to disappointing people. We just don't have the money to keep doing this stuff if we lose our linear. I think we got to be careful here.
Lionel?
Well, I look at it a little bit different. I look at it as more of a regional service rather than just the city and the county separately. So I don't have a problem participating in the project, but I wonder a little bit whether, because of the ridership and so intermittent, whether there could be some sort of a program for people who are in desperate need of the program and use our taxi services. So if somebody is really, really in need, you know, they could be subsidized and do it through a taxi service rather than our minibus program. Wonder if that could be incorporated in there somehow. Just some thoughts.
Wayne?
That's a very good idea, Lionel. I think that's something we should really seriously look at.
So is this something that, I know the Bazzano Health Foundation was looking at it. They were asking for some more information. That was after our joint services meeting last time. Do you think it's an item that's worthwhile to refer to our budget discussions, because we will know more by then as to, I'm hoping we'll know more then as to our financial position going forward? Brian?
Well, I think the request before us today is whether at this time we're interested in, as it's winding down, and with the timing of when the money runs out to fund this, I think we have to supply our administration with an answer as far as what the future is. I mean, if there's something in budget that changes down the line, I think we could always look at it. But at this point in time, there is no budget in our budget in the 2020 year's budget to continue with it. And I think the answer has to be, for me anyways, that we have to wind it down when the money's gone.
Anne-Marie?
And I agree with Brian. Whether there's money available or not available, or coming or not coming, I think if you look at the numbers right now, again, it was a pilot project and it's just too expensive.
So Lane has a number of options there in his report, and I am assuming, Lane, you would want a decision. And so there seems to be lots of opinions. So let's get a motion out there and choose from the list there, I guess. Is that okay, Brian?
Thank you, Madam Reeve. And I will suggest number 3, which is decline further funding.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. All right, we will move on to item 10.3, Municipal Stimulus Program. Request for direction from the Director of Corporate Services.
Okay, so the Government of Alberta has announced funding that's available under a new program. The application needs to be in by October 1st, and the county is eligible to receive under this per capita grant program just under $900,000. The program details is very specific about what the focus should be for projects that are being applied for. Of course, the emphasis is on infrastructure funding that will create jobs, enhance competitiveness and productivity. We have tried to pull together a list of potential projects that could be considered. This is by no means complete. I expect that members of council, after having reviewed the details of this program, may have other projects that they would like consideration given to. It's not that we have to make a decision today, but we would certainly require a decision by the next council meeting in order to get an application in on time. The list of potential projects is there for some discussion. I guess open it up for comments from council as to which one they would like to see further consideration given to.
So, Brian.
These weather, I'm not sure I want to lead this, but because none of these have much to do with me, they're all in hamlets. But the ones I guess what I would like to sort of do is take some of the ones off the list that are there, and then maybe leave it. So the second one, Patricia Sanitary Sewer Collection System. We've talked at length about the future of Patricia and the cost of doing that sanitary upgrade. And I think there's a great reluctance on my behalf to be able to support that one. The other one is the one below at the fire hall. Truly, if we're faced with some of the scenarios that are out there with our assessment review, and I hate to keep coming back to that, we might not even be able to keep some of these fire halls open. And that's sad, and I hate to say it, but that is the reality. So I don't think we should support something that in the interim to support a fire hall upgrade unless it's one that we know for sure it's going to be remaining open. And I don't see Patricia as being one of those ones, unfortunately, just because of the number of firefighters we have there. And although they do a wonderful job, it would be sort of silly to improve a fire hall and then close it the next year, sort of thing. The other ones, the pathway is sort of a fluffy one thing. I like it, but $1.2 million. So you're down to water distribution upgrades. I guess what I'm looking at is the ones that are in hamlets that would actually improve the livability and enhance the usage of our hamlets, attract people to come to stay there or to move there. And I think some of those other ones do that. And I'll just leave it at that. Maybe I'll have some comments farther on, but that's sort of where I wanted to start it off with.
Wayne, thank you, Brian.
The one that I kind of looking at is the truck hamlet parking lot. I really think that's kind of an economic development issue also that, and it will improve the community, the hamlets themselves, get the big trucks off the main street, keep our maintenance down a little bit maybe, and I think that's maybe a good one, and it's relatively inexpensive.
Other thoughts? Anne-Marie?
Yeah, I think we should look at the Patricia water lines. We've been talking about it for a long time. We didn't want to pave any roads in the hamlet because the water and the sewer lines had to be replaced. Now the sewer has been an issue. I don't really see a solution for that yet. So why not get these water lines upgraded and have that in place? And the amount of money is pretty close to what we're going to get and what we need to do that.
Other comments? Ellen?
Yes, I sort of like the, and again, I can't open files, but from my recollection, there was campground facilities upgrade, like i.e. the power sites and also telecommunication infrastructure. And those things are, from what I read before, those are qualifying projects. So I'm thinking it hits two things. One is the campground facility. The other one to upgrade the Wi-Fi in our campground. Certainly, and it would really attract more tourists because people do want power nowadays. And I think it has so many. It checks off so many of the qualifying aspects that they're looking for in projects like this. So I'm in favor of. And which other one? Because I don't have the file, so I'll leave it at that one for now.
It's definitely an interesting time for us to try and figure out how to spend money. And I totally support the concept of let's do some things that might help us going forward in a new reality versus versus other things, I guess. And I'm curious, this virtual power plant thing that is the last one on the list, Lane, renewable energy generation system that would help us lower our bills in the county office and our buildings, but also, you say other community facilities. How would that work? And then I think we'll have to go to our public hearing soon. Yeah.
Well, right now the county is participating in an energy aggregation program that was overseen by the Rural Municipalities Association. The 8760 group actually administers that on behalf of all of the participating members. With the recent changes in the energy industry and opportunities that now exist to develop renewable facilities, we can actually construct power plants in one location, and the electricity that it generates can be allocated directly to a number of facilities that are scattered around the county. It doesn't have to be used behind the meter where it's actually generated. The county's annual electricity costs over the last 5 years have been in excess of $200,000. In addition to the county, we have, I think there's 11 other community facilities that are operated by ag societies and associations that are participating in the same program. And their combined annual electricity costs have been in excess of $158,000 as well. So energy is a fairly significant ongoing cost to the county and all of the other community groups that are participating in that program. And the thing in identifying this one is that the potential exists to reduce that overall cost of energy in perpetuity going forward if there is interest in pursuing the development of a virtual power plant that could produce energy that would be made available for all of those facilities.
All right, thank you for that, Lane. We will come back to this item 10.3 after we complete our public hearings. And so we'll refer back to 7.2 on our agenda. And I do know that there are people in our, or people online, I guess, people somewhere that are wishing to speak today. So Todd has been keeping me up to date with that through texts, and hopefully we'll get it all sorted out. But we'll move into public hearing 1996-20. So we need a motion. Move in. Clarence moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And we'll turn it over to staff to fill us in on details. So just before I do that, does anyone know, do we have people available? Or someone?
We do have people in the council chambers right now for land use bylaw 1997, I believe, and also they have dialed in. So we do have a few people for the following land use bylaw. I'm not sure about 1996-20 though. So.
All right. Well, we'll start with 1996-20 then. Maria, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So this is an application to redesignate the subject lands from rural business, it's a split zone, rural business and agriculture to zoning the entire parcel rural industrial to facilitate a fertilizer business. The location is in Division 4 near the hamlet of Scandia in the northwest of 1915 west of the 4th Meridian. All of the adjacent lands are in the agriculture land use district. The applicant would like to construct a 48-foot by 80-foot agrochemical storage building to complement the new fertilizer retail business that they started this spring. The Agrochemical Warehousing Standards Association has guidelines for this business to ensure that these facilities are set back appropriately from residences and from property lines. Unfortunately, when we did the original land use amendment to that split zoning, we were unaware of these standards and how the applicant wanted to grow his business. So now, in order to help him grow, they would like to rezone to rural industrial. So there is a residence on the current location, which is outside of the required AWSA setbacks. However, because of that split zoning, it can't accommodate the business and the residents. So the rural industrial district can accommodate a fertilizer and sale business as well as the dwelling. The existing residence is currently being used as a dwelling, but the applicant has indicated that this building will become an office for the business in the future. That's the information for the public hearing portion.
All right. Are there any questions from council? Brian?
So when it comes to the zoning of this, when you deal with a fertilizer or chemical distribution place, is there any reference to the safety of the resident that's beside it that split the zoning, and when it comes into and I'm not sure which department, whether it be environment or so I guess that's what I'm asking is does there come into play anything when it comes to this type of facility, which basically deals with things that can blow up and the proximity to a residence beside it?
Yeah, so the Agrochemical Warehousing Standards Association does have setbacks, and they regulate these type of businesses. So in this case, the residence, where the proposed location for this warehouse is and the residence, it's outside of those setbacks. So it would be good, except for how we have it zoned. So they base their setbacks on where the zoning line is and not necessarily property lines in this instance, which I guess is a little bit unfortunate for the applicant because he has to go through this process again. So as far as that warehousing association is concerned, the distances are okay as long as it's all one zone or district, I guess, if that makes sense.
Got it, Brian?
Well, I think she answered my question that it's a little bit convoluted. I guess I'm trying to look at it. Sorry, I got to ask a good question. So if this residence is sold, is there a safety issue? That's what it comes down to. So if it's sold to a different landowner than the guy than Mr. Sandow that owns the commercial business, the distribution, and the residence is sold to somebody else or things change hands, is there a safety issue when it comes to the residence and its proximity? I think you answered that there isn't one, but if there's something you can allude to specifically that safety issue, I guess that's where I'm wondering.
Sure. So I guess that with the split zoning, it's really just an arbitrary line within a parcel. So the business and the dwelling are all on one parcel. So if the residence is sold, then it's still part and parcel of that business. So if they wanted to sell that residence separately, it would need to be subdivided. And the applicant has said there would be no intention of that. The intention is that residence becomes an office for the building in the future.
Perfect. Any other questions in regards to this first item of Clarence?
So my understanding is that to sell that as a residence, you have to subdivide it. And when we subdivide it, it's not going to work. So that would be refused. Is that the logic behind it?
I'm not sure that I would say refuse necessarily, but I think that MPC would have to consider the business that's next to the dwelling. And I don't believe that will ever be the intention of the landowner to subdivide. But it could be refused based on that. Although the residence does meet the required setbacks from the warehousing association, it's just because of the split zoning that kind of made an arbitrary boundary between where the business was going to be and the residence. But now that it's all zone 1, everything works out and meets all the guidelines.
Jeff and Wayne.
Hello. Am I echoey here? Can everybody hear me? Okay, let me jump on the other computer.
Wayne, in the meantime, you can go ahead.
If that residence was to be sold, wouldn't it have to be rezoned anyways?
In the rural industrial district, residents can be located on the parcel as long as it's part of the activities and the use of the land.
Wayne, you have to, unmute.
Yeah, but if it was separated off to be sold as a resident, you would have to be rezoned back to residential, wouldn't it?
That's correct.
Jeff.
And I guess just for some clarification, if a future subdivision application did come in, that new subdivision would then be an acreage residential subdivision, and those new property lines would still be required to meet these setbacks that the agricultural chemical warehousing company does mandate for further operations. So like Maria mentioned, just where it was zoned, split zoned residential was too close to where they were going to place the warehouse building, and that made it a no-no for the guidelines.
Other questions? This is your opportunity to get clarity. Since no other questions on this one, we'll move on to the next one, which is 1997-20. And I do believe we have some people that are involved with this. So we'll get Maria to about it, and then there are people in the county office that I can see, and I believe there are also people online or on the phone or something. So maybe what I'll do is, well, we'll get Maria to explain what we're talking about, and then we'll have different people introduce themselves so you can all be ready to go. So go ahead, Maria.
Okay, so bylaw 1997-20 is a land use bylaw amendment application to redesignate the subject lands from hamlet residential to direct control to accommodate a private school and a potential worship center. These lands are located in the hamlet of Patricia in Division 3. The adjacent lands are in the public service and the hamlet residential land use districts. The applicant would like to utilize the existing residence for the purpose of a private school and a potential future worship center. Land use bylaw 1892-17, so our current land use bylaw cannot accommodate the private school and a worship center within the same land use district unless the parcel is zoned direct control. The purpose of the direct control district is to give council the flexibility and discretion to approve a use or development, provided it would not unduly interfere with the amenities of the neighborhood or materially interfere with or affect the use, enjoyment, or value of neighboring properties. The lands also need to have legal and physical access to a developed municipal roadway. So in a direct control district, all applications for use or development are heard by council rather than MPC. We circulated this land use amendment to all the adjacent landowners and required referrals. And as of the beginning of this week, we had not received any feedback. There were no comments or concerns from the required referral agencies. As part of the land use, as part of this bylaw, we have a Schedule B, which has some wording that would need to be followed going forward. So for this lot, permitted uses will be a private school, a religious assembly, and accessory use or buildings and structures related to an approved private school or religious assembly as approved by council. The setbacks for this district would be the same as the Hamlet Business District, and the standards of development in Schedule 3 of the Land Use Bylaw shall be applied to the development on site. Also, the use standards in Schedule 4 of the Land Use Bylaw will be applied to the development on site. So part of that would be that a public or separate school, and private schools would all be contained within a single parcel. They must be located on a road which is paved or hard surfaced, and they must connect to all hamlet services, as well as some other policies that are within the land use bylaw. And I think that covers it unless there's some questions. I know that the applicants are in council chambers right now and willing to answer any questions. And as well as some neighboring landowners are online.
All right, thank you, Maria. The applicant, Mr. Torkelson, perhaps can join Jeff up there, and maybe if anyone has questions or if Mr. Torkelson has anything to add. First, I have to ask, Mr. Torkelson is in our council chambers, so I'm assuming that he can seek colors and understand what's going on here. It's a new experience for us all. We've just done it a few more weeks than you have had the opportunity to do so. Mr. Torkelson, do you have any questions about the setup to begin with?
Oh, for sure. But, number one, I am open to, we're here to address any concerns that came up or whatever, but I think it's been fairly straightforward so far as working through this up to this point. So I guess I don't have anything that's pressing. So
okay.
Not at this point anyway.
All right, so that's good. We can hear you well. So, councillors, do you have questions for Mr. Torkelson? Brian.
Just curious about where the access point is going to be. I'm looking at the map here, and you have the highway that comes into Patricia on the north part of our map, and then there's a lane that goes down the right side that looks like there's an access point there too. So I just need that sort of idea where that access point is going to be.
Okay, the access is actually coming off of the north, the paved road there, going into town. If you notice on the map there is two adjacent properties that also access the road, but there is a of an approach that is already in place there, and we didn't even realize it at the time until we looked into it. Jeff actually pointed that out for us, and it's already a developed approach with so that part is fine.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm assuming that's the part that can be seen on the map quite clearly, above the red lines, the little entrance ways. Okay. Other questions? Maria, you had your hand up, and Tracy?
I was just going to expand on the access. So the current access to the property is from the west. It goes across an EID canal. You can kind of see that on the aerial photo. But if a school is established on that location, then the access road will need to be changed so that it comes off of Railway Avenue from the north and then south into the property. And the applicant we have discussed that with the applicant, and they are well aware of that will need to be established and are agreeable to that.
All right, Tracy, question, and Kelly?
Yeah, that was going to be my question, was about the access and if it could be on the west side or not. So I think, Maria, you just said no, that it has to be from off of Railway Avenue. Is that correct?
As part of the land use bylaw, access to a private school has to be off of a paved road or a hard surface. So that road is actually a gravel road, and it does encroach on 2 other properties. So it would be recommended by our department that it be changed.
Kelly.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Torkelson. Thank you for coming in to answer our questions. My question is around fencing. Will be a number of children involved. Do you have plans for fencing in the area?
That is something we've discussed, and we are not 100% sure what type of fence, but there would probably be boundary fences put up. Maybe if we're given some time to get that put into place, that would probably take some time to get that all finished. But that's been in the discussion, and I'm sure that's the way it'll be. On the north side or on the south side, there is some already because of the reservoir that's there. And so our thought is to continue that type of fence, which is more of a chain link. So it'd be, just to keep things in the yard. There wouldn't be, the perimeter would be, everything would be contained within that perimeter. So yeah, we have discussed that, and that's the plan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from council? All right, we'll move to the other folks that are here. Oh, Todd?
Yeah, sorry, Molly. I'm actually just texting with the people that are on the phone. They're both together, Shara and Shannon. And I told them that you would ask them to speak when it was their turn. In the nicest possible way, I promise.
Yes, I've been receiving your emails or your texts, Todd, and stay up to date on what's going on here. So this is sort of brand new.
Hello?
Is this Shannon?
Yeah, sorry, we weren't able to join the live stream because we didn't have the appropriate operating system, I guess. So we're on the phone here.
Perfect. Well, that's great, Shannon. So then you can't see what's going on. You're just listening.
Well, we're watching you. We can see you. You just can't see us. That's probably a good thing. But anyway.
Okay, so you can see the council and all of us and gathered.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, Shannon. We're now at the time where you can speak and ask questions, whatever. So go ahead. And I also know as Shara Morris is also available with you.
Yeah, we're doing our technical difficulty troubleshooting together.
Perfect. Go ahead then, Shannon. I'm Molly Douglas, and I'm the one that's talking. I chair this meeting. The other councillors are all gathered here today, as is Mr. Torkelson. So go ahead.
All right. My name is Shannon Packham, and I'm actually speaking on behalf of one of the adjacent landowners who wasn't able to be on the phone or in the meeting in chambers. He just had he's got some concerns because he only recently purchased this property, probably a couple of years ago. I don't know the exact dates, etc. But he is the property, if you're looking at your little map there, the little part that heads to the north, his property is to the east of that little access that joins the pavement.
Okay.
If everybody can see or can sort of understand what I'm talking about. Anyways, Chris purchased that parcel that is to the east of the appropriate access road. The access road that is proposed to be the access into the school or worship center. So Chris's concern is, one of Chris's concerns are that if they're going to use this as the access, it's going to go right past the back of his house. And when he put his house there, that wasn't an access road, that was a pasture, basically. So I don't know what, I don't know what you can do about that, but it sounds to me already that that's where they're going to have their access road, because the school has to come off of pavement, and that's where the pavement is. So that is a concern for Chris, I guess. Also on his list here, Maria actually answered one of the questions. It was why does it have to be rezoned from Hamlet residential to direct control? And Maria answered that question already. I took notes as fast as I could, but I'll try to relay the information. Another thing is that Chris is worried about the amount of traffic going in and out his back door, basically. And he's worried about what he will be allowed to do with his property if this is approved. Because, in future, it would be something like, oh, sorry, you can't do that because there's a school there. Or, oh, sorry, you're not able to do that because there's a school there. He's worried about what upgrades he would potentially be denied if this is to go forward.
All right.
Let's see. I think that's pretty much what other than questions that have already been answered, that's pretty much what Chris has on his list. So I don't know if you can answer those or you just take them into consideration or what you do, but that's what I have to say. I'll turn you over to Shara.
How about we start with your questions,
sure,
Shannon, and see if we can get some answers, and then we'll go back to Shara. Sure. So what I heard was there is a concern about the road and the amount of traffic, and so Mr. Torkelson, perhaps, and Maria. Maria, I'll start with Maria. Do you have an answer for that particular question?
Sure. So as far as traffic, and Mr. Torkelson and I have spoke about this before, so I think that I can speak to this. The proposed school will accommodate grades 1 to 10 and include approximately 16 students and 3 teachers. So the applicant has said that there will be between 4 and 6 personal vehicles accessing the parcel for student drop-off per day. And the school will run Monday to Friday from 8:45 to 3:15. So there will be a little bit of traffic in the morning and then again traffic in the afternoon. As far as the access coming alongside that neighboring landowner, there are setbacks within the land use bylaw that stipulate how close his house has to be from property lines. And that parcel, whether it is zoned hamlet residential or direct control or really anything within our land use bylaw, there's still the potential to utilize that piece of land as an access road. So unless, I guess there's major concerns coming from that, that applicant, I'm not sure how you discourage that. And maybe Jeff, you can speak to that more from a municipal services side of things.
Yeah, I can follow up on that a little bit. Like Maria mentioned, I mean, the access will be a laneway off the paved road as per our land use bylaw. We've had discussions in the past, and it was implemented into the land use bylaw that schools take their access from paved roads. There's that. As for Mr. Skinner's lot, you know, he's zoned hamlet residential, so the development of this parcel will not infringe on any of his rights of what he can and cannot develop on that hamlet residential parcel.
Mr. Torkelson, did you want to say anything about the amount of traffic?
Maria touched on that, and that's very accurate in what you'll be facing. You know, there's always a potential to grow, and we hope it would grow if it's approved, if everything goes through. But you know, if we're very open to concerns, if there is an issue that we can address that isn't within our control, then yeah, we're open to that. Yeah, I understand his concern as far as lots of activity in his backyard. I understand that. So.
All right.
I don't think that, like, it's not, you know, the amount of traffic is a concern. The concern being that when Chris purchased his parcel, the access into the property that is in question was from the east, right? Like, it didn't come past Chris's between Skinner, or if I can call it Skinner's and Byers, because those are the properties. Like, it's just easier for me. The access into this property that is going to be rezoned was from the east side of the house, not from the north. So now, right. Okay, we've got a proposal for a school and stuff, and it has to come off a paved road, and that's all fine and good. And he doesn't have a problem with that. The problem is that now it's going to be, it's going to be right past his back door, basically. The fact that it's, okay, before when it was a house, it wasn't a big deal. We can enter the house from the east. But now it's a school, we can't enter from the east, we have to come from the north.
Correct. And we
so,
understand.
like that, yeah, that's a big concern, right? Like, that's one of the issues that Chris has.
Right.
So, like, maybe pave the other road. Like, I don't know. It's just a...
All right, we have some more questions. We'll start with Jeff on that and then go to Tracy and Anne-Marie.
Just for council's information, we have been trying to get in contact with Mr. Skinner with regards to the house that was moved on to the parcel. There is currently no development permit for that house, so we have been trying to contact him through enforcement and numerous letters. So just for council's information, we are still working with Mr. Skinner to try to get that all cleaned up and rectified. I was by there yesterday and did notice the house and spoke with Maria and Steinley as well, and a few letters have been sent. But, you know, again, this is one of the education type things that we've been talking about. We need people to come in and speak with our department to get the facts and get the proper information for development of their parcel.
Thank you, Jeff. Information, Tracy and Anne-Marie.
Well, my question was a little bit, that access was always there, the one that we're speaking of in question, right? It's not like this is a new access. And also, is there not traffic that goes by on Railway Avenue? Like the property in question, is there not traffic that goes by on that road as well?
Tracy, are you asking me that question? I don't know who you're asking the question to.
I can answer the part about the access. The access has always been there ever since we went in and paved Township Road 203 or Railway Ave. Previous owners, in my recollection and from what I know, did not use that. As Maria mentioned, they use the access off of Willow Street, which does cross across the County of Municipal parcel, as well as the ID canal or drain there.
Okay, Tracy.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Anne-Marie.
Yeah, I guess it's a public hearing, so we can only ask questions, but I was going to say the same thing about the access road. I actually remember that family building that house, and the access was supposed to be from Railway Avenue, and they did not want it, and that was actually quite a procedure to change it to the other side. It's never really been convenient at all. It needs to be from Railway Avenue. But the second part that I wanted to comment on is that this is a public hearing for a zoning change, and once the permit for the school comes in, then we'll get more details about where it will be located, where the access is, and what kind of fencing will be in place. So we will have another chance to discuss this.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Ellen, did you have a question? No. Okay. Are there any other questions? Shannon and Shara, did you have more questions?
Yeah.
Or comments, concerns?
So just say your name. My name is Shara Morris. I live northwest of the proposed property to become a school for worship area or worship building. The individual that lives in the old buyer's place doesn't actually live there anymore. He's deceased. So I'm not too sure, besides Chris Skinner, they're trying to contact. So I guess moving forward, I do realize that the school or the sewer and water system in the hamlet of Patricia needs significant upgrades. With a school or place of worship, this would increase the sewer system needs as well as the water needs. Would that be an issue to the rest of the hamlet water system?
Thank you for that question. Jeff can answer that.
Thanks for the question, Shara. As for the water and sewer systems in the hamlet of Patricia, we did our infrastructure master plan a long time ago. It was back in 2010, 2011, if I recall correctly. And the upgrades identified as part of that infrastructure master plan, as far as the water system goes, were more for looping, flush points, and so on and so forth to operate it more effectively and efficiently. The water demand is not in question. The water can be supplied for the hamlet and even more than that. So the demand for water is not an issue that's in question. It's more so the looping and the operational efficiencies for operating. There are lots of locations that cannot find curb stop isolation valves, so on and so forth. So to better be able to isolate the town when something happens. As for the sanitary collection, yes, there are definitely issues have been going on for quite some time. Most recently, we've noted issues on Railway Ave. I'm just waiting for a sanitary sewer inspection, which I hope to receive here this week, to look at upgrades. But again, it is not a capacity of sewer issue. It's actually, where we have spot issues in the pipe, collapsed pipe, infiltration, so on and so forth. There's a lot of vitrified clay tile sewer pipe in Patricia that was installed quite some time ago, and obviously we know the new standard is PVC smooth walled pipe. So yes, the sewer system in Patricia does need attention. We will be working on some numbers for 2021 budget, but again, that's not a capacity issue. The system can handle the capacity. The lagoon can handle the capacity. It's more of, again, an operational issue where we are seeing more and more failures that require more and more maintenance and money spent on them. It's been a long time, I think, and the preventative maintenance hasn't been there on both the water and the sewer systems, which is what's needed to keep it in working order.
Thanks, Jeff. Other questions, Cheryl?
Oh, yes. As it being a private school or place of worship, let's talk about taxes if you can take a minute. I've done a little bit of research, and to what I understand, places of worship and schools are tax exempt. With saying that, taxes need to be paid as we all do. Could you touch base on that?
Who's around that can answer the tax question here today? Lane, perhaps?
We can attempt to address that. Churches are certainly exempt. They are subject to payment of local improvement taxes, but houses of worship and schools are exempt from property taxation from the general municipal mill rate.
As in all churches and all schools?
Correct.
All right. Carry on, Shara.
So would it not be okay to leave it zoned residence and have it just a homeschool like they're doing now without question?
Maria?
A development permit is required for a change of use. So if it's a home and the use is residential, but now it's being used for only a school and not a residence, then they will need to obtain a development permit. and a private school and a worship center cannot be located on a property zoned hamlet residential, which is the reason for this land use amendment.
Thanks, Maria. Shara, more questions?
Oh, absolutely. Has it ever been brought up with the county wanting more residents, perhaps, and tax-paying dollars to come to our area? Was it ever thought that the piece of property to the direct east that the county mows and pays money for the maintenance, the mowing, the summer maintenance, whatnot? Would that be an idea that the county would not donate, but be purchased at a less premium to have that space utilized as well, and or the playground that is directly south of Patricia? The town people have always maintained it and have used it, which is great. There's a beautiful playground there that the rec group in Patricia had spent, I believe it was about $40,000, and it was instilled by volunteers. Would either one of those properties work, for instance, as well?
I'll try and answer that myself. This public hearing today is about a particular application, and so all we're doing is sort of focusing on this particular application today, rather than looking at other areas within the community. So if there was someone who wanted to do something with those other areas, then that would be a separate discussion. I believe I would be accurate saying that. Other questions, Shara or Shannon?
I don't. It just sounds like it's already a done deal, so I don't know whether my asking any more questions are going to do any good at all. So
I actually do have another question. The access road from the north being between Byers and Chris Skinner's, would there be any reason to question if it would be paved or would it be gravelled? And if so, would there be dust control? As for Chris, I'm sure that would be a concern, as it would for the students and the neighbors.
And I think, Jeff, perhaps if you wanted to make reference to the different parts of this with the conditions on the development permit going forward, or thoughts you have on that?
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that would be dealt with at the time the development permit was applied for, along with the fencing of the site and any thing that happens within the site. These are, some conditions that could possibly be placed on the development permit as a condition of that permit to take place. We do it lots, dust suppression. It's not always making somebody pave a road from time to time. We apply calcium chloride throughout the county for dust control on gravel roadways, oiled surfaces, anything hard can obviously control dust. But again, that is something that would be attached to the development permit at that time.
Further questions? Shara and Shannon?
Yes, I just have one more. With it being a private school, would there be a speed limit change along that railway avenue with the fire hall being directly on the west side? Would there be a speed limit change with it being a private school? And if so, would it be patrolled as a safety measure with having a direct access to the north?
Once again, I call on Jeff, who knows this answer.
This is again something that can't really be determined right now. I think that would be discussed at time of the development permit application when we receive a full site plan. Looking at it right now, I don't believe so. It looks like there's lots of grounds to the south there after you get through that little bit of a panhandle to allow kids to play and so on and so forth. So I think when we talk about speed zones and safety zones and school zones and playground zones, we need to look at each situation individually, and we need to take a look at what the possibility is of something happening and what the speeds are currently on the road. Currently, that's a 50 kilometer an hour road past there, and in my opinion, looking at it right now without seeing a site plan, I don't see too many issues with that. And of course, we have two enforcement officers that regularly patrol speeds in and out of school zones throughout the county.
Thanks, Jeff.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I believe on the south side of the proposed area, there might be a 20-foot grass area, and then there is the county's large dugout. So I'm not too sure which south side you're talking about.
Sorry, I was referring to the north side along Railway Ave. I believe that's what we were talking about, the paved road across the north end of the property.
So,
and then the expanse of land that is above the subject property after that.
Right. So basically, will there be another time to ask specific questions? Like, Jeff keeps saying development permit application stage, but I don't know what that means really. So
what we're in here today is a public hearing for the change in the zoning of the parcel only to direct control. We know that the intended use is a private school and a worship center, but no development permit has been applied for either of the facilities. So, like I say, today we don't have all the details of exactly what it'll look like. We have only the intentions of the applicant as to what they want to do, and hopefully, in the near future here, if this does get approved and converted to direct control, the applicants will come back in with a development permit application, laying out more specifics of what exactly the site is going to look like, what exactly the yard area is going to look like, what exactly the fencing around the property is going to look like, and even as far as outside the property, speed reduction zones, dust control, all things that are talked at the development permit stage.
Okay, so then basically once it goes from Hamlet residential to direct control, then basically Chris will have an opportunity to address his concerns himself. Hopefully, like he's been off work since like March, so only has been back to work for the last 2 weeks. And unfortunately for him, he wasn't able to be there at this meeting to voice his concerns himself. And I hope that I have, gotten his point across, because, like he's not opposed to a school or worship center being in this space, but he does have concerns about, what it's going to do. The access road is his biggest concern, because it comes from the north. And, if there was some way that it couldn't or didn't, I guess that would be good. But my question is then, will there be time for him to ask more questions, or voice his concerns or whatever? And I mean, I'll let him know that you guys have been trying to get a hold of him, but I mean, he's been working 14-hour days. So he'll be back at 9 o'clock tonight. So.
Absolutely, and Mr. Skinner can call into the office, email into the office anytime, talk to myself, Shanley, or Maria about concerns. And again, that would be fantastic if you let him know we were trying to track him down on other matters as well.
Okay, like he's just, he's just starting out. He doesn't have a big, huge bankroll or whatever. He has to work in order to do upgrades, whereas sometimes that's not an issue. So anyways, I'll pass it along. I appreciate that you let us speak, or let me speak, and let Sheriff speak or whatever. And I took some notes. I wrote as fast as I could. So thanks for letting us ask questions.
You bet. Thank you for being interested and taking time to find out some answers. Back to Council, any questions? Further questions? And then back to the applicant, Mr. Torkelson, anything else you want to add before we complete this part of our meeting?
No, not really. I appreciate this. And like I said before, we are open to, whatever concerns, like we want to work through it in the right way. Yeah, we appreciate all the input, and thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you for attending. Any other questions, Council, before we may have a motion? I call for motion to move out of public hearing. It's your last opportunity, of course, to ask questions. So could we get a motion? Anne-Marie moves that we move out of public hearing. All in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. And so I believe we may as well go to the bylaws and complete that before we break for lunch. So that takes us into the second reading for the Bylaw 1996-20, the Sandow application. Could we get a motion for second reading, please? Lionel moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And for third reading, Tracy moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And for the Torkelson application 1997-20, a motion for the second reading. Ellen moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And for the third reading, Anne-Marie moves. All in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried also. And I apologize for the time that we cut into lunch for staff. Not councillors have to work day and night, of course, but staff. So I am wondering when we come back if, what is it, 12:28, is 1 o'clock okay for staff to return, or is that too fast? Do you need more time? Or council even, does that work for people?
Is that will not work for me. I will not be able to get to that location that soon.
Oh, okay. Ellen, have you talked to anybody from the county before you go traveling to see if they can fix your computer? Because I do know sometimes I have the same problem.
Absolutely. There is no problem with the computers. It is
it's your Wi-Fi. Okay. All right. Well, then we'll regroup at 1:30 then. Will that work, Ellen? Or 1:15? Which?
Well, either way, it should work.
Okay. Well, we'll go for 1:30. So there's no rush for everyone. And so we'll reconvene at 1:30. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, staff.